If you're new to DIY, creating an art piece can be a little overwhelming, but today I'm going to show you how to make a simple, oversized piece of art that can save a ton of money and you can customize to the colors of your room. Let's get into it. I found this really cool abstract art online, so I'm going to take some inspiration from that and create my own version today. I really like repurposing items that I have around the house. I have a bunch of leftover paint and we all have a million of these samples around our house. So I'm gonna use 2 green colors because I really like that tone on tone. And then contact paper. This is just the stuff that you use to line your drawers. I'm gonna use that to make a bunch of shapes on here. I'm gonna use a 4-inch sponge brush just to cover the canvas really quickly, a paint tray, your canvas. You can use a new one, or my tip is to get a thrifted one. You can usually get them at the secondhand store for maybe like $10 for a really big one, and scissors. All right, let's get the first coat of paint on. I got my paint smock on and we're ready to go. We're gonna start by painting the canvas. I'm gonna get my 2 paint colors ready. This is leftover paint, which is this really pretty green. And then I had this darker green paint sample. I'm a big fan of tone on tone, so I like using the lighter green and the darker green, and I think that will look really pretty in the room design that I'm working on. That's why we wear the paint smock. We're gonna start by painting the canvas with the lighter color. It's always easier to cover a light color with a dark color. And then when you peel off the drawer liner, you're gonna reveal the lighter color. All right, let's paint. And don't worry about getting these edges right now. We'll actually paint that with the darker color. If you're planning on framing this, you don't have to worry about it at all, but I'm not planning on framing this. I'm actually just gonna lean the canvas on the shelf. Depending on what kind of paint you use, you might only have to do 1 coat, but if you're covering up some thrifted art, you might have to do 2 or 3. But I think this looks pretty good with 1 coat on. This looks really good. I like this color. I'm clearly having a green moment. While I let this dry, I am gonna start cutting out my shapes. Since we just did 1 coat, this actually dried really quickly. So I'm gonna start cutting out my shapes and putting them into place right away. I'm just gonna cut off a smaller chunk of this so it's easier to work with and I can show you guys the shapes. When I'm cutting the shapes, I like to think of bubble letters. So let's do an M first, and you're just creating abstract shapes. I like to make mine a little bit more curved, but this is one of those projects where you can have as much fun as you want with it. If you want to do all triangles, if you want to do more shapes with harsh lines, you can do that. Bubble M. And that just creates a really fun abstract shape. I need to cut out a bunch of these shapes and then I'll move them around. And then the nice thing is you can always fill in any gaps with a little circle or a long line. We have to fill up this entire canvas, so let's go through the full alphabet. We'll do an A. Maybe something like that would be fun. We'll move this maybe over here. So this paper's sticky. So after we get it all arranged, we'll take off the back and stick it, but wait to do that until you have everything in place. I like the layout I have right now. I'm actually gonna start peeling off the back and laying these down. We have a bunch of our shapes on now. I like some negative space, but there's a few gaps that I just wanna fill in with pieces I cut to specifically fit. So we'll add that right there. And then you'll wanna go over each one and just make sure they're tight to the board, because if there's any gaps, the paint will seep in. It looks good, so I'm just gonna clean up my workspace and then we'll paint on the top coat. Okay, now we're gonna brush on the darker paint. This is gonna be our top coat. I'm hoping just to do one layer, but if you have any of the lighter green or the base color poking through, we might have to do 2 coats. I love a project like this because you can pick whatever colors work with your space. I like when the shapes are kind of a close shade to the base color, but you could do something with a high contrast, like white shapes with a black top coat. It's honestly whatever you like best. If you don't plan on framing this, this is when you're gonna wanna get all the way around the canvas with your top color. And just remember, you're not so concerned with covering the white shapes. You wanna make sure that you're getting the base color all covered with your top coat. And then it's always better to do multiple thin layers than to put on a ton of paint with the first one, because sometimes it can seep underneath your shapes. I think there's a couple areas I'm gonna wanna touch up, but besides that, after it dries, I'm excited to pull off all the shapes. The paint is dry, and now we can start pulling up the shapes. Ooh, look at how good that looks. If you have any that are a little tricky to get up, you can always use a flat edge and just peel up the corner. I'm really digging. I'm really liking this green on green. And I found it's easier to peel it up when it's completely dry. That way you're not getting paint on your hands and getting it in places that it shouldn't be. Okay, this is looking so good. I'm loving the green on green. I think it's gonna look so beautiful in the space. And then the last step here is I'm gonna actually add a top coat. And you wanna make sure to get a non-yellowing top coat so it doesn't make your art look dingy over time. I did an example back there, and you can see that the top coat is on the right and it deepens the colors, which I really like. So I'm gonna add it. It's an optional step, but it will definitely help preserve your art. And just remember to use a clean brush, and it's gonna go on a little bit milky, but it will dry totally clear. And then we'll be able to put it in place. I'm just gonna lean the art up there, and I absolutely love how it looks, and it fills this space. And I could customize it to the colors in this room. In this chapter, I showed you how to create oversized shaped art by cutting pieces out of a drawer liner. This project is for everyone, so you definitely have to try it.